A very good day to everyone. I'm Dr. Saras Krishnan from INTI International University, Malaysia. The title of my paper is Towards Equitable Education. Now, before I start my presentation, I would like you to take a moment to think about this statement. Viruses don't discriminate. As we go through the presentation, see if your feelings or your opinion about the statement changes. Viruses don't discriminate. Now, the worldwide lockdown due to COVID-19 pandemic caused unprecedented disruption to education. For example, according to UNESCO, the COVID-19 pandemic forced schools in 191 countries to close down, affecting some 1.5 billion learners. The closure of educational institutions was seen as a necessary strategy to break the critical transmission chain of COVID-19, forcing immediate transition from conventional education to fully online education. However, questions remain as to whether the quality of education was compromised and if anyone was left behind in the process. COVID-19 crisis has revealed the inadequacies and inequities of education systems, including access to technology, the environment, and misalignments between resources and needs. In this presentation, I will talk about the impact of COVID-19 on education and educational inequality in the wake of this pandemic. Studies confirm, not surprisingly, a relationship between COVID-19 and educational activities and the impact of COVID-19 on education. The impact relates directly and indirectly to numerous social and economic issues such as students' financial condition, healthcare, and internet services. We are going to look at the financing of education, interaction and internalization, teaching and learning loss, parental role, and health problems as the impact of COVID-19 on education. The pandemic forced public and government funds to be diverted to the health sectors and in maintaining and reviving the economic sectors. Nevertheless, in order to accommodate the sudden transition in the teaching and learning process, governments channeled large amount of funds to the supply of digital devices and for financial support of students and schools. On the other hand, financial crisis during the pandemic caused some students to terminate their education as their parents could not support their education. Studying at home as opposed to studying in a campus environment led to students' lack of social interaction with their peers and the instructors. Besides that, closure of international borders affected the mobility of international students, resulting in the lack of international exposure and opportunities for social networking. Moreover, as international students opted out of studying abroad, some institutions' financial standings were affected, especially where there is a large percentage of international students. Although educational institutions seemingly successfully went into full online mode in a short period of time, in reality there were no sufficient tools, knowledge and experience, in some cases, if not in most cases, for effective transitions. Not only there was lack of social contacts and face-to-face interactions, educators may not be adequately prepared to conceive and deliver new instructions and assessments. While students were more stressed and anxious, but less motivated and less engaged in the online environment. Especially students from the disadvantaged backgrounds were more affected as they have limited space and resources. COVID-19 has caused the largest disruptions to education in history, leading to reduction of available human growth, innovation, and employment. In addition, the learning loss experienced by the students affected the matching proficiency to the labor market, resulting in lesser earnings. Parents had to become a more intense mediator between the students and the instructors, especially students at lower levels. However, the effects of lockdown on some parents' finances caused them to be less supportive, be it emotionally or financially, especially where parents struggle with economic uncertainty and demands of working from home. As such, there are considerable disparities among parents when it comes to supporting their children's learning. While some parents can afford to provide additional help and sustenance for their children, the parents from economically challenged backgrounds do not have the capitals nor the disposition to do so. Restrictions to movement and cease of usual day-to-day activities reportedly affected students and instructors' physical and mental health, as well as their emotional well-being. This includes weakness and fatigue, headache, backache, and eye strain. Studies showed that disruptions to sleeping habits, lack of fitness routines, and lack of social interaction significantly affected health conditions. Reports and studies have shown how COVID-19 was more punishing towards those most economically disadvantaged communities. Begin with, these people cannot afford proper accommodation. They live in overcrowded areas such as the slums. They cannot comply with social distancing measures due to the high density of population. On top of that, there is lack of proper amenities and health facilities, unstable work conditions, and unsteady income. Low socio-economic status communities faced poorer economic conditions, worse health conditions, and grave financial issues, leading to the halt of already sparse education for their children. Disparities in the educational progression and achievement among students from different SES, socio-economic status groups, is a well-documented global issue. More importantly, students from different backgrounds were found to demonstrate larger achievement gaps where educational inequality is prominent. The unforeseen tragedy that befell the world past 2 years has made us question our preparedness in facing such situation again. The lockdown measures created huge barriers for students from low SES backgrounds, causing a sizable number of children from remote or backward areas to not be able to access online education. COVID-19 made worse the education situation for nations who already had a broadening education gap prior to the pandemic. Educational inequality have a strong association with the attainment of educational qualification and social positions. In most cases, the differences in educational achievements are associated with SES background, though the magnitude depends on social context and education systems. In order to ensure inclusive and equitable quality education for everyone, we must focus on students who have constantly been excluded from even minimal educational opportunities. We must ensure that parents are equipped to create a conducive learning environment in the new mode of learning, especially low SES parents, because they have much lesser resources and information about how to foster their children's achievement. In conclusion, the closing down of learning institutions has had negative repercussions on students' learning, despite students continue to be educated remotely. Students from economically challenged backgrounds felt a larger impact of the learning disruptions and disruptions to assessment due to limited funds and resources. Limited access to technology and the channeling of funds to the medical and economic sectors significantly suspended learning. We are especially concerned if students in the developing nations are able to receive a decent amount of education and support during such tragedies. Lastly, having understood that the shift in education was not equally successful among different socio-economic groups, we should work towards narrowing the gap and achieving equitable education. So back to my initial question at the beginning of the presentation, do you still agree that viruses don't discriminate? Well, while it may be true that viruses don't discriminate, it divides people because the low SES communities are definitely more affected than the higher SES communities. Thank you.